Alzheimer's is a form of dementia. It comes in 7 stages. Stage 1, there is no impairment. This is non-detectable. No one knows that the person has Alzheimer's. Stage 2 has a very mild decline, still not super noticeable, not always diagnosable. By stage 3, that's a mild decline. Family and friends start to notice memory loss and just small things that a family member is doing. Stage 4 is a moderate decline. The short-term memories lost, as well as simple arithmetic starts to become complicated, simple daily tasks challenging to plan. Stage 5 is moderate to severe decline. By then, it's extremely noticeable this person has Alzheimer's. 6 is the severe decline, and then stage 7 is the very severe decline, and by the time people reach stage 7, this is the final stage, and they start to lose the ability to do things like swallow, eat, and that's usually what causes them to pass away. There are 2 forms of Alzheimer's. There's early onset and late onset. Early onset is rare, and it's represented by less than 10% of people that have Alzheimer's. The range of people who have early onset can be as early as your 30s and goes to about early 60s. Early onset does have some properties that they think are inherited. There's 3 single gene mutations that are associated with early onset Alzheimer's. There's the amyloid precursor protein, APP, on chromosome 21. There's a mutation on persillin-1, PSN1, on chromosome 14, and persillin-2, PSN2, on chromosome 1. Mutations in these genes result in the production of abnormal proteins. Those are associated with the disease. Each of these mutations plays a role in the breakdown of APP, a protein whose precise function is not yet known. The breakdown is part of the process that generates harmful forms of amyloid plaques, a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. Late onset, researchers have not found to be inherited or have any inherited traits. They haven't even found the specific gene that causes late onset Alzheimer's. However, having a genetic variant of the apolyl protein E, APO, gene on chromosome 19 does increase a person's risk. The APO gene involves in making proteins that help carry cholesterol and other types of fat into the bloodstream. There are 3 different types of the APO gene that could have an effect on late set Alzheimer's. APO2 is relatively rare and can provide some protection against the disease. If Alzheimer's disease occurs in a person with this allele, it usually develops later in life than someone with the APO4 gene. The APO3 is the most common allele. It's believed to play a neutral role in the disease, either decreasing or increasing your risk. And the APO4 increases your risk for Alzheimer's disease, and it's also associated with earlier of the disease being contracted. People who have 1 or 2 APO4 alleles have the increased risk of developing Alzheimer's. Also, 24% or 25% of the people carrying APO4 and 2 to 3% of people carry 2 copies of the APO. So can Alzheimer's be inherited? We touched base on this a little bit, but we'll go into a little more specifics. So, a person whose biological mother or father carries a genetic mutation for one of these 3 genes has a 50-50 chance of inheriting it. The mutation is inherited. The child has a very strong chance of getting early onset Alzheimer's. The 3 genes were APP, the PSEN1, and PSEN2. With late onset, APO4 is called a risk factor gene because it increases the person's risk factor of getting it. However, inheriting that gene does not mean someone will get Alzheimer's, whereas with early onset, if someone inherits the gene, they are most likely going to get Alzheimer's. Talk about the physiological changes that happen within your body when you get Alzheimer's disease. So, the healthy human brain has tens of billions of neurons. These are specialized cells that process and transmit information via electrical currents and chemical signals. They send messages between different parts of the brain and from the brain and the muscles to the organs. Alzheimer's disease disrupts this communication. It results in loss of function and cell death. The brain does typically shrink during old age, but surprisingly, you normally don't lose function of these neurons. But someone who has Alzheimer's loses all function of these neurons, which then causes the loss of function that you see in someone who, as they go, progressively loses their ability to have memories, to do normal daily functions that we do every day. The disease is ultimately fatal because eventually your neurons are unable to process even you doing the simplest things like breathing, eating. You can't do it anymore. Some people do die before that, but if you die because of... So what are the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease? The first one is memory loss that disrupts daily life. The most common sign of Alzheimer's disease is when people start to forget simple things they remember every day, forget to turn off the stove, forget where they left their keys. It's the hallmark sign everyone knows, people having memory loss. 2 is challenges in planning and problem solving. Someone who has developed Alzheimer's disease will have trouble planning their day-to-day life and problem solving when an issue comes up in their life. The third symptom is a difficulty completing familiar tasks. Now this is something like making yourself a meal. Maybe you forgot, or they'll forget that they haven't eaten lunch, or they forget they already ate lunch. This can be very unhealthy and dangerous as well. The fourth one would be confusion to time or place. Someone with Alzheimer's may get confused if they aren't in somewhere like their house, which is their day-to-day living. They don't know where they are or why they're there, even if originally they went there with the intention of knowing. The next symptom is trouble understanding visual images. For some people, having vision problems is a part of Alzheimer's disease. I know for my grandfather who had Alzheimer's, he wouldn't be able to see his dinner plate sitting in front of him, so he would assume that he didn't have any food and start trying to eat off other people's plates if he was hungry, or he just wouldn't eat at all because he couldn't see the food right below him in front of him. The next one would be new problems with words in speaking and writing. An example of this would be like someone who, instead of saying watch, says hand clock. They know what its use is, but they don't know the word for it anymore. The next would be decreased in poor judgment. Someone with Alzheimer's, we have to take away their license because at this point, they shouldn't be driving because they don't have the judgment you need to be able to be behind the wheel. Next would be withdrawal from work and social activities. Someone with Alzheimer's will withdraw for maybe a few reasons, but it could be because their ability to hold conversations and do the normal things they do is lacking, or they might just forget about plans that they're making and forget to go do things with people. Next would be changes in mood and personality. Someone with Alzheimer's could just, their personality changes. It's different than what it used to be, and that's something we have to learn to accept with people that have this disease. So, how do you treat Alzheimer's? Well, sadly, Alzheimer's does not have a cure, but we do have ways to treat symptoms of the disease so that it's easier to maintain function for a long period of time than you would without the medicine. So for mild to moderate, we have 3 different medications tend to use. They're rosatidine, Exelon, and Aricept. These are cholinesterase inhibitors, and they're for mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. As I said, they're not for when they get into the severe zone. These drugs just reduce symptoms and help some of the behavior symptoms I told you about with the mood swings and the personality changes. Now, for moderate to severe, we have a different medication. This medication's main effect is just to decrease the symptoms. It's to help maintain your daily function for longer periods of time. It helps people to maintain things like individuals using the bathroom, maybe brushing teeth, feeding themselves, and it helps that function last out for several more months. The dosage, we always like to start patients at the lowest dose possible, and if they need more, we work our way up, but these drugs can all have some very negative symptoms or side effects on these patients, so we don't want to go too high too fast. Now, what's the future of treatment? Well, every day they work towards a cure for Alzheimer's disease. We're always really hopeful about finding the cure and just finding a new way to treat it. They came up with this way of trying to remove plaques in people's brains because that's what Alzheimer's causes, is plaquing in your brain. They tried it. It seemed to be working, but that's more of a thing they have to watch in the long term. But what they do is they remove the plaques, and it doesn't return the losses you had of function, but it helps that you don't get any more loss, which I think is pretty cool. Lastly, what kind of support is there for someone who has Alzheimer's disease or their family? Well, the Alzheimer's Association has this really nice list online of the different things that come up when a family member has Alzheimer's disease that can help you out and help them out. They give tips about caregiver health because it's really important for the family members taking care of their loved one to maintain their own health. Daily care is important on how to help someone with Alzheimer's live their ADLs, their normal life functions. That's a super important thing. They also just tell you what to expect. This is a scary disease. People going into it, they don't know what to expect. So they give you a bunch of different things you can expect and ways to help along the way. They have different programs and just support groups for people in these situations. There's nursing homes for if people just don't have somewhere to go. You can always go to nursing home. But if you want to keep someone at home, there are home health nurses that you can have come to your home and help your family members with things like showering and stuff if you still want to keep them at home with you. And that's all. Let me know if you have any questions.